Join me today as I dive into the 2020 film, The New Mutants, and see if I can figure out for us if it was a total flop or not. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son talk about fantasy, science fiction, horror, and other nerdy things that we enjoy. I'm Jim, the father of this channel, and I'm glad to have you here with me today as I talk to you about a movie I finally recently watched. If you enjoy this, be sure to give us a thumbs up. Let me know, like the episode, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. We've got a ton of videos here for you to enjoy. Now, this will be a spoiler-light review and discussion of the movie, but at the end, I have a short, full spoil section for those of you who have already watched it. The movie we're talking about is The New Mutants, that came out August of 2020. The genre it's complicated. This is a superhero origin movie. It's directly related to the X-Men franchise, but this is also a bit of a horror film, bringing in some psychological and supernatural elements of horror into it, along with some influence of classic horror films. But it's also, and perhaps most significantly, a coming-of-age story set in a thriller format, which all comes down to tell you that this film suffers from a bit of an identity crisis. Back in 2020, when this film came out, I was definitely interested. I read the New Mutants comic series from its first iteration by Marvel Comics back in 1982. And I continued with the series for quite some time, all part of the X-Men universe, which I have read most of. Certainly the things from the 80s and the 90s, some even more recent. Seeing many of the original New Mutants characters being re-envisioned for this film, I was like, all right, that might be good. It piqued my interest. And the cast that they chose for this film, full of actors that I have enjoyed elsewhere at that point. Again, this was 2020, so Maisie Williams, I primarily knew her from Game of Thrones. Anya Taylor-Joy, I'd seen her in The Witch, but also Split and Glass, part of that Unbreakable trilogy. Really liked her roles there. Charlie Heaton, Stranger Things, of course, and even Alice Braga in a number of films over the years. I'd seen her like I Am Legend, working with Will Smith, Predators, and Elysium, great sci-fi flick. But this was one of those films that unfortunately came out during COVID. And there were a few other things on my mind back then, along with many other people. The movie didn't get seen when it came out, and it dropped off my radar after that, until finally I came across it on a streaming platform again recently and said, the time has arrived. So I watched it. I generally do enjoy Marvel movies, anything with Marvel superheroes, so I went in hoping for the best. Is that how I felt? Well, let's talk about the film. Spoiler-Lite Summary here. In The New Mutants, we've got a group of 5 young people with emerging mutant powers who are confined to a mysterious and seemingly abandoned medical facility. Each of them struggles with painful pasts and uncontrollable abilities, which this institution and the doctor they work with claims their goal is to help them understand and control their powers and to overall just be better ready to adapt and survive in this modern world. But as unsettling phenomena begin to unfold after the addition of the most recent of these mutants, the teens start questioning their surroundings. Their captors, perhaps not just treatment providers, and they start questioning even their own minds. So, part superhero origin story, part psychological horror, the film explores themes of trauma, identity, and inner fear as the group must decide whether their greatest threat lies within the facility or within themselves. I've got 5 takeaway thoughts for you in this review. First, this movie has a very different tone from anything else out there in the Marvel movies, whether directly the MCU or the other related content, like most of the X-Men and Spider-Man films. And even related just to the X-Men movies, very different tone. Perhaps too different for what people were looking for. Secondly, I appreciated the various references and ties to the greater X-Men universe that are packed into this movie, as well as references to the full story of the New Mutants from their own comic series. However, much of that would just fly right over the head of the average non-comic reader who's watching this film, and without those understandings, this film lacks considerably in richness and depth. Thirdly, I did not like or enjoy the adaptation choices made for the character of Ilyana Rasputin. Magic. She's one of my favorite characters in the New Mutants, but the way she's written here, or perhaps just the way Anya Taylor-Joy chose to bring her to life, it didn't work. Something's missing, and I did not care for this adaptation at all. On the other hand, my fourth point is that I liked Maisie Williams' performance of Rain Sinclair. That actually was one of the stronger elements of the film, so way to go, Maisie. Finally, I didn't find the movie to be particularly compelling or interesting. It just lacked something intangible. It's kind of hard to pin down exactly what it was, just what they should have done differently. Perhaps it goes back to the movie trying to be too many different types of things. Superhero movie, coming of age thriller, scary horror film. It ends up just a bit of a mess. It doesn't deliver well on any of the notes. My rating and recommendation? Well, perhaps it's rather harsh, but I can only give this a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I wasn't finding the movie particularly memorable. I have no interest in ever watching it again. I can't describe it to you as a must-watch film, even if you're all in with X-Men or Marvel content. It's not awful, but when that's one of the better things I can say about a film, that's not great. And apparently, my take is not alone. I did some research after prepping for this episode to see, okay, what did other people say about this film? What conclusions did they come to? Well, I found that financially, it was a considerable loss, the lowest grossing film in the X-Men franchise, and the movie rates only a 37% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, and only a 5.3 out of 10 rating on IMDb. Yeah, it's not the worst film ever, though, show, but it's not that grand either. All right, if you haven't watched the film, this is where you should stop. Thanks for being with me here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.
The Spoiler Room.
All right, since you're still here, you have seen this film. Not that many people bothered, but you did. So here's just a few last comments for you. I really don't have much else to say. I'm disappointed the movie wasn't better. I could definitely say that, as it could have been the start of a darker, grittier aspect to X-Men movies. I would be here for that, including the fact that right at the end, there's hints that they were introducing or prepping to introduce Mr. Sinister, Nathan Essex, one of my favorite villains from the X-Men franchise. But alas, not going to see it now, it looks like. COVID did no favors to this film. It was delayed from the original 2018 planned release for all sorts of reasons, including Disney's purchase of 20th Century Fox, the studios that was creating this film. Those various different issues caused the movie to be pushed back and back and back, so that when it released, it's right in the midst of a global pandemic. Now, that's no excuse for writing and acting choices that don't quite deliver, but it certainly didn't help. Disney is the one we get to blame, though, if you actually wanted to see more with these characters and a greater tie-in to the rest of the X-Men and MCU franchises. Apparently, Disney has a thing about losing money sometimes. I mean, they still made Snow White. But they have officially shelved the storyline that's first introduced here in the New Mutants, this direction they were hoping to take the X-Men franchise. Yeah, it's just not going to happen now. One last thought. The Demon Bear. That's a direct draw from the comics, from the New Mutants storyline, particularly tied to Danny Moonstar. And I appreciated that they brought it in here. It's a little early to already be on to the Demon Bear, but their adaptation choices, the way they use that, okay, the Demon Bear was actually pretty cool. I did like that. I'll admit it. All right, that's what I have for you here today. What do you think? Comments about my comments, comments about this movie as a whole, or things you wished to see after it, if it had done better, put your comments down in the comment box. I read them all, and I'm happy to reply. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.